Trolls are Fey. Not in like any of the actual monster manuals or anything, but in my heart, which is what truly counts. And guess what? It's time for this year's Monster Week video, where Ginny D and Pointy Hat and hundreds of other wonderful creators create some super cool themed monster content for you to use at your TTRPG tables. This year's theme? Fey. So if this is your first time here, hi, hey, hello, I'm Stephanie. I play and run a lot of games, and my goal is to help you run games that your tables will obsess over. And today, we're doing that by addressing D&D's biggest monster misstep, trolls. D&D put them in the wrong box and we're moving them. And in that process, you are gonna walk away with some fresh troll encounter ideas, a magic item, and a playable troll ancestry that your players can use at your tables. Blah, blah, blah. So if you haven't noticed, trolls in D&D are very specific, because I could be wrong here, but I don't really remember the part in the Three Billy Goats Gruff where the three Billy Goats had to dismember a troll and then either burn it to a crisp or douse it in acid? That feels like it'd be memorable. But yeah, trolls in D&D aren't really rooted in folklore the way you'd expect them to be. And that's because they're actually inspired by this guy, Poul Anderson, and his book 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, and 3 Trolls, and 3 Knights. And so this book was part of Guy Gax's Appendix N. And it's probably why trolls are part of D&D's mean and green monster club. Monsters like orcs, ogres, goblinoids. It's a very crowded neighborhood. Anderson's trolls were unique in that they had the ability to regenerate. And the only way to stop it was with fire. Much like house spiders if you're a little wimp. But definitely not part of the traditional troll folklore. Obviously, D&D's trolls evolved from there, because there are actually a ton of bastardized versions that come with various weird things that happen when they're regenerating. Like trolls that are blasted with enough psychic energy become spirit trolls and regenerate with no physical body at all. Or dire trolls, who get bigger and grow extra heads when they not only eat other trolls, but also stick their appendages onto themselves while regenerating? What? So yeah, a lot of variation when it comes to troll regeneration and finishing blows in combat. And look, I don't even really hate this version of trolls. I think that the first time players encounter this revenant-style monster, it can be a really fun and wild ride. And then if they see a variation of one, shocking, weird. But after that, it becomes a bit anticlimactic. Because once you've seen a troll grow a head by eating another one and sewing its limbs onto itself, you've seen them all. So while D&D's version of trolls are clearly monstrosities, I think we can make trolls so much more interesting to bring to the table if we look at some other sources of inspiration. I love folklore, and I think if we take a look at trolls through that angle, giving them some fey flair starts to feel like the obvious way to fix them. So let's start with some Scandinavian folklore, because they still have trolls that can be violent, but I think it makes it very clear that their origin should still be fey. This is a hill I will in fact die on. Combat to the death, baby. First of all, what makes something fey? Why do I think trolls are fey instead of monstrosities? While D&D's version of trolls are dangerous and aggressive, the real-world folklore surrounding trolls feels very fey. They're directly tied to nature in that they're creatures of stone and mountain. They have an inherent magic to them and an alien moral compass. And while monstrosities exist to be defeated and are kind of a catch-all in D&D, Fey exist to be dealt with. And that's a completely different thing. Trolls aren't always violent, and therefore don't always need to exist under the lens of combat. One of the things that stands out a lot in troll folklore is that trolls aren't necessarily literally these lone wolf creatures. A lot of stories actually have them living in troll societies. Some of the themes you'll see pop up are the ideas that trolls can turn into stone in sunlight. Some try to become human by marrying humans. And you'll see a lot more variation in troll personalities. There's definitely the classic troll trying to eat people varieties. They're usually big, dumb, brutish ones. But there are also house trolls that are kind of similar to Nissa in that they're fey creatures that can protect your home. But there are also really clever trolls that are troll hags, and they share more of a similar story space to primeval Baba Yaga. Like, there are really a lot of varieties of trolls out there. So don't feel limited just because a lot of us only know about the people-eating ones. And when you dig deep into the folklore, you'll see a lot of trading and cautious coexistence between humans and trolls. And those are the types of stories where you'll start to get like a lot more of that Fey vibe coming from them. There are stories where a troll kidnaps a midwife, but when the midwife helps the troll give birth, they'll protect that person's mountain village for generations. There are stories about sharing food, pulling splinters. So there's this idea that trolls, when they're helped, can bring great gifts to a person. But if they perceive they've been wronged, they can also hold great grudges, like me. But this really plays into that whole idea of Fey debts and obligations and the whole blue and orange morality they live by. So it makes trolls that aren't good, that aren't evil, they're just different. Even in the stories where trolls are more violent, one of the things you can take note of is this idea that you can drive them away with church bells or by invoking the name of Christ. In a lot of Scandinavian folklore, you can map this idea of New World religion pushing the Old World out, pushing away these pre-Christian entities. Which, again, very Fey of them, if you ask me. And you did, it's why you're here! While Scandinavian folklore definitely sets the Fey tone for trolls, the trolls I love best are actually Froudian trolls. Ever since I was little, I've been obsessed with Brian Froud. Every time my dad took me to Borders when I was a kid, I would run around grabbing all of the books I wanted to buy, and then just plant myself in the New Age spirituality aisle. Also, I could just absorb his artwork for the next hour. But not only is Brian Froud a wonderful artist, he and his wife create such beautiful modern folklore. And I straight up use a ton of their work when I look for inspiration for things to bring to my homebrew Feywild setting. Their troll book is no exception, because holy shit are Froud's trolls interesting. They check all the boxes for me. They range in size from looming monstrosity to tiny field mouse. Some, like the humanoid troll maidens, are very beautiful and ethereal, while others look like weird little root buddies you'd pull out of the ground. Some have heads so big that they need to put their chins and their schnozzes on little walking canes. And some even have heads that detach. This is an apt time to mention that Brian Froud did a lot of work for Jim Henson, so if this sounds familiar, like The Dark Crystal or like Labyrinth, you'd be correct. But even their personalities vary. There's some that are grumpy and stupid and vicious, others are tricksy and cunning, and others still are sentimental and weepy and write poetry. They create all sorts of really cool talismans, and more than anything else, they care about the sharing and keeping of stories. Their domains are thresholds, these places of in-between, which is why bridges are one of the many places you can find them. But the thing that makes them Fey above all else is this idea that trolls are of Earth. You know how gods rule over domains? To me, the thing that makes Fey Fey is this idea that they are the embodiment of the thing. And that's what trolls are with Earth. That's why they're made of root and stone. Why they turn into mountains if they sleep too long. They're not monsters that live in nature. They are nature. So what are some ways you can use these Fey variations of trolls in your game? Just because they're more nuanced and interesting doesn't mean you can't still use them in combat encounters. One of the bits of lore that I really love from Froud's trolls is this idea of troll maidens. They look like beautiful ethereal women, but yep, definitely still trolls. You can tell because they might still have a small troll tail, or just little branches and roots that grow out of the small of their back. A fun and interesting surprise. But troll maidens are very enchanting to regular trolls. They have significantly shorter lifespan than normal trolls, so it's almost as if knowing a troll maiden is like knowing this charming little butterfly. It's this fleeting joy that comes into their lives, and they will protect them at all costs. So a really interesting combat encounter could feasibly happen if the party comes across a troll maiden picnicking at her favorite bridge. Little do the players know that the surrounding walls aren't made of stone, at least not the normal kind. They're actually much larger, much more dangerous trolls, basically enforcers. And naturally, these enforcers don't really like the idea of a bunch of people with swords and stuff walking up on their troll maiden. So they have some things to take care of. And so you can play it out like a very traditional fight, but you can also make it clear that an alternative goal is for the players to find a way to defuse the trolls that are guarding this troll maiden and to assure them that they mean no harm. Probably easier said than done, but the important here is that these trolls aren't just big brutes. From the trolls' perspective, they're the good guys here. But if you want to have a scary troll, there's a story in this book about how bad trolls, like bad ones, sometimes eat other trolls. Apparently, this is very impolite of them. But I think a fun scenario would be for the party to come across a bridge with a gaggle of trolls hiding underneath it. Because the players would probably assume they're about to be ambushed. But if they try to confront the trolls or try to circumvent the trolls, and the trolls are able to catch up to them, they will stop the players and plead for their help. They explain the situation, that they have basically become just walking snacks, and ask the players to help them relay their message to the troll lady, who is the only one who might be able to deal with this monstrous troll. So part of the encounter could be trying to deliver this message, or escorting the group of scaredy cat trolls on their way to the troll lady. Maybe they have a run-in with this big troll on the way and have to escape, so you can do out a nice little chase sequence. But then the second part could be helping these trolls defeat the larger cannibalistic troll. Because although he's very big and dangerous, he is also very dumb. So the troll lady creates this replica of a troll out of sticks and stones, very convincing, and tells the players to affix it to his tail. Because if they can do this successfully without getting eaten, she's almost positive that he'll eat himself. He's that dumb. But you can also have this kind of combination encounter where a troll isn't necessarily the thing that they're fighting, but is still involved. So one of the bits of lore in Froude's book mentions that fairies and goblins like to torment and tease young trolls. Very rude. So for this encounter, I'm imagining a bit of a social exploration and combat encounter all mixed into one. The players walk through a village that's been flooding at a low-grade level for weeks now. The villagers are exasperated because they just can't get this troll child who's posted up at the top of their mountain to stop crying. It's his tears that are going to wash away this village in the end. If the players investigate, they'll learn that some goblins stole his favorite toy, and he thinks he's never going to get it back. And it's like this thing made of petrified fruit that's been carved up in twigs. It's kind of freaky looking, right? The players can explore the woods. So you can throw other fey creatures and encounters at them if you want. You can make it in sort of like a hex crawl situation, you know? But eventually, if they come across the goblin who stole the toy, they're gonna have to fight him. The weird, creepy toy, that is. The goblins have animated it, and now it's skittering menacingly through this shadowy, dark mountain forest. So, make sure they come across it in low dusk hours. Oh, and fun fact, it has a knife now. Depending on how many players you have, maybe the goblins have cast a duplication spell on it. Helps up the difficulty a little bit. But once the party drops the real doll to 0 HP though, the goblins will scatter and the player can return it to the troll child. And if you'd like some stat blocks for any of these encounters, I'll link to them below. But okay, what if we didn't have the players fight any trolls at all? I think there's so many cool things you can do with trolls without them being something that your players need to fight. Want to take your players for a jaunt through the Feywild? Players are honestly kind of like moths. They really love to follow mysterious floating lights. So instead of it becoming a combat encounter with a will-o-wisp, these floating lights turn out to be the lanterns of trolls making their way back to their home in the Feywild. They kind of live on this border area, right? The threshold between the planes. And oops, your players have walked there right along with them. And they just can't seem to find their way home yet. Bummer. But if they're nice to the trolls and maybe have some fun stories to tell them, they might let the players borrow one of their stones with holes. While having a very mundane name and an equally mundane appearance, this magic item that I'll link to below allows the players to communicate with others or scribe between planes. So they can at least tell their mom they're not making it home for breakfast. Or, possibly ever. I always love different ways to deliver prophecies and information. So Froud has this section on the 3 standing stones, which are trolls that have turned to stone, a la traditional folklore. But if the players come across them, these stones can deliver a prophecy. Froud notes that while these stones have prophecies to share, they probably won't be the prophecies that your players hope to hear. Bleak. But other than prophecies, he also mentions troll talisman, bundles of mundane-looking sticks, stones, paint, and feathers that tell tales that any troll can read. So if your players want to go out and seek some troll societies as an introduction to the Feywild, maybe they win something like that off someone in the tavern and need to go find a troll that can interpret it. And if your players enjoy this interpretation of trolls, why not let them play as one? I actually think Froudian Trolls would make really interesting PCs. They would be a really good fit for someone looking to play a non-traditional musical bard, or even a little weirdo druid. Love a weirdo druid. I love this idea of my party having a troll maiden who wants to get out there and explore and bring back home stories of the broader world. So she just goes and becomes an adventurer. I think that's a great bard inspiration one there. I also think it'd be fun to play as a troll that a knight tried to vanquish, and they just got all flustered and turned around and haven't found a way back home yet. Or maybe you can even play as a formerly brutish troll, one that started sampling their friends, which again, frowned upon, obviously. But now they want to go experience more culinary delights and have set off to do that in the mortal realm. We love a foodie with a dark, complicated past. I just think there's a lot of really weird buddies you can create, and that's the sort of energy I want to bring to my tables. So there's the link below with all of the information on the troll ancestry, as well as the magic stone with a hole and combat stat blocks, and they're all faux free. So make sure to go check them out. And don't forget to tell your friends. Trolls are Fey! Let me know below what other D&D creatures you think deserve the Fey treatment. Who else is maligned here? And if you want even more Fey content, make sure to check out my video on Fey and Hag bargains next, along with the rest of the really awesome videos on the Monster Week playlist. There's tons more inspiration for your games there, and those will also be linked below. Bye!